Thanks for listening to the Triple E podcast. My name is Dante.
And my name is Shad.
We invite you to engage, enlighten, and empower. Be sure to keep track of us on YouTube at Triple E Pod. Be sure to subscribe, comment, and thumbs up our videos. Also, be sure to email us at tripleepod@gmail.com with any thoughts you have about anything we say. With that said, actually, we probably need to say some things, Shad. First
Exactly.
off, how you doing, man?
Man, I am outstanding. I'm blessed. We've been talking about, but launching this podcast for a couple of weeks now. Both of us have kind of explained to each other. This is kind of a magical thing that came together, right? We both had a want to do it, and it's kind of an unlikely marriage, right?
For sure.
For sure.
It's a good thing though. So
It's a very good thing.
I'm excited to be doing it. So I think we've already explained what the three E's are and what we want to do there. I think we can wrap up the intro portion with our mission statement, and that'll kind of give some good guidance to it. But just as like, I guess, a means of a foundation for people to know us, let's kind of walk them through how we got here, like how this all came
Right.
about, like who we are and what led to this, because that's sort of an interesting thing to me even.
Right. Well, so initially we met. I was introduced to you through your wife, right?
Right,
And so
right.
her and I had worked together, and so I remember the conversation came up. I had mentioned to her, like, man, I'd always kind of dreamed of doing stand-up comedy. Never really had the guts to do it. Still haven't done it, right? But she's like, oh, you should meet Dante. I'm like, who's Dante? And I didn't know that she had a man, much less a black man. I was like, oh, Lauren, you're cool. I didn't know. No, but so anyway, we'd met through that. We met through that, and but one of the things that I always like, that is kind of neat about this is as time progressed, just through different social media things and conversations, we'd kind of realized that, I mean, we have always had respect for each other, right? But we had different views, right, of certain things, right? And I don't want to necessarily say it was, I mean, some of it was politically based, but we just saw things differently. And so with that, I mean, I'd kind of thought that you were over here and I was over there, and that's the way it was. And come to find out, through really, I would want to say, as a product of the environment right now. We were led to
perfect.
Yep. As a product of the environment right now, I was led to kind of reach out to you, and we just kind of started conversating, and come to find out, lo and behold, and maybe that's kind of a great place to start a lesson. Part of the Triple E is bringing people together, and we were brought together through a common bond, common shared thing of wanting to leave a better life for our children, of wanting to bring people together through knowledge and understanding. And that's what this podcast is all about. And so that's kind of how we started this thing. And I mentioned to you that I've always wanted to start a podcast. And lo and behold, you're like, hey, I've done a podcast and I've got software and I'm like, what? Right.
I have a podcast that I don't keep up. All right. I have all this equipment and all this time that I should be doing a podcast. And because I don't have someone to help keep me accountable, I just wouldn't do it. And so now here we are. I have someone that I'm doing it with. So it works out that way. And you nailed it in terms of describing how it came along, because on my end, that's how it kind of went as well. It was a thing of like, there were some assumptions made on my end for sure, where I was like, we definitely don't see things the same way. But what I think ended up happening was, as you mentioned, the product of the environment pushing us to a place of acknowledging some hard truths that are sometimes a little bit harder to want to put out, right? And so you start seeing these things and you go, wait a minute. I think he's saying what I think he's saying. And then you just kind of go, hey man, I see people, because you would say something and I would see someone misinterpret it. And it doesn't matter how much I disagree with you. At a certain point, our common bond, whatever it is, I mean, we know what it is, but whatever it is, I go, you know what? Let me just reach out, because this is being misinterpreted on purpose, I believe. And I want him to at least know that he's not crazy. So it's one of those things where, like, if the person you think you disagree with goes, "Hey man, you're not crazy," sometimes you go, "Okay, I'm not crazy." And so and what all it did was it opened up the door to be like, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe we aren't disagreeing on this stuff. Maybe what's actually happening here is we just don't quite see it the same. Our experiences have led us to different places on it, but that's not disagreement. It's it's just adjusted perspective. So when you get there, it creates a really cool thing where you can kind of we just kind of played off each other initially, where it was like, okay, you know what, I think after I said that to you, you then came back at me, and I was like, I think he's testing me. I think he's trying to see how much blood there is in the water. And so I chummed a little more. I threw even more blood out there. You were like, okay, well, how about this? And I go, all right, well, how about this? And then, like, before you knew it, it was to the point where, like, we're determining we're going to do the podcast. And, you know, you call me and you're like, hey man, I got these production ideas, but, like, I want to run a crazy thought by you. And then you start telling it to me, and I'm going, all right, man, you're done talking, because where's the crazy? And you're like,
where's the crazy? That was I'm going to tell you what, that was one of the biggest bombshells, right? I mean, the whole thing was a bombshell. Yeah. But to experience that, and let me, if I may, just take a second to interject something that you said, because I really think it captures the spirit of what we hope to achieve with this podcast. When you said, right, that we know what it is, our common bond. Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to just touch a little deeper on that, and I don't want anybody that hears this, if we, to take it the wrong way. But our common bond is that of being, Black men in America, but also in rural Iowa, right? And so the way that we see the world, now get this, so I want people to understand this. As Black men in Iowa, where Black people are like 3% of the population in the state of Iowa, right? Yep. So a lot of people don't understand what it's like to be that in that position. Okay. Yeah. So if you happen to be one of our Caucasian brothers and sisters, like it would be very, very hard for you to understand where we might come from on an issue, and vice versa. But the gem inside of this is, even though we had that shared connecting bond, we were still misinterpreting each other.
Yeah.
So what does that say for somebody that's outside of that cultural dynamic?
I know it's like I said, it's an interesting thing, because I know how I can get. So it was just fun for me to be like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Like testing the boundaries of it, just going like, okay, I see what you're doing there. I respect that, but here, let me try this. And then just having that ability to sort of, adapt to what was happening was really cool. And like that, I made sure I wrote this down so I could read it off, because I did, like I said, I wanted to make sure we got to the mission statement and let people know where we stood on things. And all it is our podcast is a space for honest, unfiltered conversations about race, politics, sports, religion, and the challenges of navigating life as Black men in Iowa. We seek to shed light on the truths as we see them, challenge perspectives, and foster dialogue that encourages understanding, growth, and empowerment. In these unprecedented times, our voices matter, our experiences matter, and we are here to share them unapologetically. Beyond conversation, we are committed to accountability, holding ourselves, each other, and society to a higher standard of truth, justice, and progress. So it's not, this isn't some DEI podcast. Like we're trying, okay?
We're trying to, and I think that, and I loved that you used that. That was a great segue. That was a great bridge. It's not a that's perfect. Yeah, because people could misconstrue what, as Black men in the state of Iowa, we have a perspective, but this isn't about us railing on. It's about, we want to share that perspective with the 97% and engage with them, right? Yeah. But how many of that, if there's 97%, majority of another culture, and we're 3%, what that tells me is the overwhelming majority of the people in the state of Iowa probably aren't in a position where they're connecting with anybody outside of their own cultural norms. Does that make sense? So that's not any fault of their own. It's just the way it is.
Right. And that's we're ultra minority here. Like, right. I grew up in Louisiana, man. And so I know what it's like to be somewhere where it's, where this isn't the case, where the numbers skew in the opposite way. and I in my act now, I do a lot of jokes about the difference between living in Louisiana and Iowa. And even in the past, I've done this quite a bit. And it's just this thing where I want people to understand that, like, not having the cultural understanding of someone else doesn't necessarily, like, I won't even say doesn't necessarily, it absolutely doesn't inherently make you wrong or bad. It's
Mm-mm.
just the inability to accept and learn it as it is that starts to create the issues.
Right. If you don't know what you don't know, and it's okay to admit that you don't know. Right. And I think
Absolutely.
that's the place that we have to get to. Is I think we've gotten to a place in society where we shame people. Right. I'm not saying you and I'm just saying as a culture shames people for, oh, well, you don't understand how could you understand?
Right.
Right. Like that's not your.
The trippy part of this is that, like, before I lived in Iowa, I lived in San Antonio, Texas for a while. So I learned a lot about Hispanic culture. And then when I moved here, it was during Obama's run for his second term. And there were so many, like, woke white people who were starting to understand cultural appropriation. So they would say things like, like, just this thing of, like, I'm trying to not overstep boundaries and trying to make sure I'm respectful of your culture and this, that, and the other. And I always reminded them that, like, I'm actually trying to learn your culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
I'm
Trying to learn from each
ingratiating.
other.
Yeah, and it wasn't something of, like, me bending at the knee or trying to acquiesce all their
Yeah.
whims and desires. It
Yeah.
was just this thing of, like, I'm here. I like, not everything I do is right just because I'm different, and so,
Well,
like,
and that's important for them to understand too. Is like it ain't about you bowing down to me. I don't want you to be over apologetic. Like you being aware is one thing, but to put it bluntly, black people aren't looking for your sympathy,
right, I wasn't.
right?
I wanted them. Here's the thing, man. For every terrible casserole, there's the random chili over cinnamon rolls. Like, sometimes you give me some stuff from your
Man,
culture, and
I've
I
still
love
never
it.
had that. Look, let me tell you something. My mother-in-law can cook, but the one thing she always talks about, my mother-in-law always talks about how, man, my favorite meal as a kid at school lunch was chili and cinnamon rolls, and I about threw up in my mouth. I grew up pretty much for the most part in Southeast Iowa, and I never heard of that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
man.
what?
I tried it once I got here, and I
No,
loved it. And
I
then
still
again,
haven't tried it.
this is Louisiana guy. Like, it's a lot that I want to say this while we're doing the podcast. I personally am responsible for there being Tony Chachere's in Iowa, because when I moved here in 2012, no one carried it. And I had to go to the Walmart on Southeast 14th in Des Moines and demand they start stocking it, because I was having to buy it when I went home. And the guy was like, "I think we can get it on the shelves. I'll just put an order in." And now I see it everywhere. So, like,
And
yeah,
I'm not even gonna lie. I thought you was gonna say you was responsible for Popeyes. I was about to be like, man, just because
no,
you're from Louisiana. Okay, I'm just making sure.
no.
No.
They had that in Altoona before I got
Okay,
here.
I'm just
So
making sure.
yeah.
Hey, you talking about? Okay.
Now, I will
Please
say this:
now.
I did go to the one on Merle Hay and the one in Altoona enough that I'm thinking that's why they put one in Ankeny. But that's that's different stuff.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
so here's now. We brought up DEI earlier just as a bit of a punching bag for the sake of what we aren't, but it's been in the news, man. And
It has been.
one of the things we talked about was how there seems to be some mistaken identity in terms of what people think DEI is versus what it actually is. And
Absolutely.
so I think the best way to get into it and deal with what we're actually having going on in our minds is just, what is DEI to you and what is DEI not to you?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing to understand when you're talking about anything that has to do with race in the United States
Mhm.
is that, and this is going to be, this shouldn't be a controversial statement, okay? That typically, not because of any fault of our own, but because of the way because racial identity is a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just understand that. Like if you go back 1700s, 1600s, there was no such thing as white, right? Like all of Europe hated all of Europe. Northern Scotland hated Southern Scotland. They weren't on one team called white. That is not how it worked. Right. So race is a byproduct of something else, and it's a power structure to keep people divided, and we'll go down all that stuff later. But it's important to understand the history of race in this country is to keep people separated, right? That is the point. Yeah. So inherently, when you talk about something like DEI, inherently, white people are going to be overly dismissive and black people are going to be overly sensitive. That is going to be our nature. Doesn't mean that the point is wrong. Doesn't mean that there's not an issue. It just means when you address the issue, white people are going to be like, oh, that was 100 years ago. And black people are going to be like, I'm going to set you on fire. Right? It's these extremes. Right? Like that's just, and there's, what we all have to realize is there's this middle ground. White people can't just sit here and say, oh, the DEI is wrong and bad, right? It's some evil thing. It's intent. And black people can't believe, oh, it's this holy grail of equality. There's a middle ground. And that middle ground is, to me, something that we've lost, and it's called common sense. Common sense says that you can't have however many 100 years of laws against people of color that made them second-class citizens, and then all of a sudden just think because of the Civil Rights Act of 1965, which is under attack, right? Yeah. Because the Civil Rights Act, that all of a sudden now we're equal and there's no issues of injustice. And that is asinine to think that way. So what DEI is not is an attempt to make white people pay, right, for the injustices of the past. Right. That is not DEI. Right. DEI is also not putting unqualified people in positions that they do not belong. The intent of DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion is to make sure that people who are qualified have equal representation at the table, right? So that's where I would put it. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. I'm gonna let you take the baton and run with it. But
I wanted you to get your shots up on that one, because the way you posed the question and when we were talking about it was like really informative for me and really interesting. So I wanted you to like dig in on it, because that's exactly it. That's what I'm noticing, is that it's just this thing. It's the new woke, even, where instead of just saying what we want to say, we'll code it in something like DEI. And so when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as it's being stripped away, I keep hearing some people go, the Civil Rights Act already made it so you can't discriminate. So why do we need DEI? And
I got a good answer for that one.
Well, cool. So that's what I kind of wanted to. It's the fact that it wasn't the Civil Rights Act wasn't doing enough.
It was not working.
We were seeing these numbers in these places that represented inconsistencies in terms of what we knew our ability was. And so, go ahead. Yeah.
And not only that, but what people have to understand is DEI is just not about people of color. DEI is about women. It's about those who have disabilities. It's about veterans. It's about a multitude of people who, look, I tell people this all the time when you talk about diversity and the Civil Rights Act, that the biggest benefactors of the Civil Rights Movement have been white women. First of all, white women outnumber black people in America.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say there's, just by the numbers, just by pure numbers, white women outnumber black people in America. And pre-1971, 1972, if you were a white woman in America, I didn't even know this till my mother-in-law told me, you couldn't even get a bank account without your dad or your husband's name on it.
Yeah.
Right? There was no such thing as appropriations in college budgets for women's sports. My aunt is in the NCAA Hall of Fame for softball, and she never played high school softball. She got noticed. That's how good she got noticed by a college, because she was on a traveling team that was just for fun, and she was not going to cover off the ball. And they're like, hey, you want to come play at Western Illinois? Now she's in the Hall of Fame. Wow. So think about how good a woman had to be to get how many outstanding female athletes, not just in softball, but all these other sports, how outstanding they have to be to even get a chance.
Right. And so when you consider that, again, it's not just us, right? As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, when you look at how it affects us, and like all of the people that I work with, right? I'm their black coworker. All right. There's I think four of us in the workforce where I am. And I I know that I'm qualified. I know that oddly enough, the basketball coach is qualified. Uh, I know that the gentleman running the cafeteria is qualified, and then I know the other gentleman is qualified. But I when I think about every job I've had, when I think about especially here in Iowa and the black coworkers I've had at these jobs, I all I know is that none of us are so singularly representative of anything that I have not seen any of my white coworkers be representative of, that it
Mhm.
leads me to believe that like the numbers should bear out what the populace is.
It should, but it doesn't. It's not even
Right.
close.
And so that's the thing, is that like if you look at pilots, for example, and black people aren't representative of that class the whole way through, that
Mhm.
workforce the whole way through, then you start to go, wait a minute, are black people just not interested in aviation? And we are. That's
Yeah.
why there are black pilots. That's why the
Well,
Air
think
Force
about the
is full of.
Tuskegee Airmen and
Yeah.
what they had to go through. If you understand, so I'm from a military family, and I've studied the Tuskegee Airmen like in depth. Like I understand, like, and so one of them is from Ottumwa, Iowa, Hannibal
Mm-hmm.
Lee. So anyway, my point is, do you understand that the first Top Gun competition was won and dominated by black pilots? But they don't talk about that. That was wiped away. The first Top Gun competition was putting black pilots against white pilots and scoring them to see if they're able to be at combat. And like literally, the black pilots like swept the competition. Nobody talks about that. That competition was born out of that scenario, and they had to perform at such a high level. It was just incredible. Like it wasn't a race thing. It was a motivation thing. Like they were carrying the burden of trying to prove the worth of the black race. Like, hey, we're just as good as anybody else.
Which is a thing that I think I think it's hard to explain to people, because even in my position, I tell people that and they're like, "What do you mean?" Like, and I'm like, "No. It's this. You don't realize it, but if I do a bad job and I'm the first one at my job to be given this
Man,
opportunity, then the negativity, the opportunity isn't going to go to a black person after me, more than likely, if I don't
right.
do above and beyond." And so it's this thing that, like, again, when we talked about you and I seeing the differences within one another when we initially met, and like our social media presence, there are some things that are, like, I won't say universal, but that we knew the same. So I'll tell you this: you can finish this statement for me. As black men, we have to work twice as hard to get
Half as far. Like
right.
everybody, like
So
that's something you're told from the time you're knee high to a grasshopper.
so
That's
it,
something that, yeah.
so that's how these things aren't being repeated to us because our parents are lazy or because they have
Mm-mm.
a victim complex. It's because they watched it in real time.
And
And
they
so,
experienced it. And the other thing that it
yeah.
was is my parents. Like I'll tell you how. I mean, this is how insane it is. I mean, I remember as a child, as a 5-year-old. Now, as a kid, I remember my earliest memories are like from 5, 6 years old, like first
Mm-hmm.
grade. Kindergarten, first grade. And I remember from that time on, like if you came to the dinner table and there was a speck of dirt under your fingernails, my mom would stop dinner. And you'd go walk, not just wash all your hands, but clean your fingernails, trim your fingernails, and come back, and everybody was waiting on you. They're like they guilty. Why? Because my mom would tell me you can never give anybody any reason to call you dirty, classless, no manners. And what it was is in her mind, her fear was, hey, her son's not going to get an opportunity, or teachers are going to look at him bad if they perceive him to be this little dirty black kid, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I remember being forced to iron my jeans. You iron your jeans? I had to press them, got the crease down the middle, starch, right? I ironed my jeans. And I remember when I first got married to my wife, before we got married, we were going on a date. And she came over and I was getting ready. I'm like, hold on, I got to finish ironing my jeans. And she goes, who irons her jeans? She's like, we're just going to hoo-ha. And I'm like, but it was ingrained in me. I can't go in public. I'm just saying there's a standard that we are held to.
Yeah.
And that'll be a conversation for another day that's another thing that as a black man today that bothers me is I feel like that standard is going away in some respects, right?
So that's a double-edged sword for me because
it is.
I have that as well, but I also have this thing where I want to thumb my nose at respectability politics,
right?
And it's so strange for me. Like my parents and grandparents hate that when I do stand-up I curse so much, and I get it. They want me to do it because they just don't like to hear it, but I always go the one complaint they have that I always push back on is they'll say, cursing is for people who are unintelligent. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm smart as a motherfucker. I'm smart as shit, bro.
Yeah.
So and I mean, I know what they're going for, but in the same vein, like that's the thing with being married to a white woman. Actually, you learn these things where like I'll be
That's
cooking.
Another thing to tell people is we're both black men in Iowa with white wives, both of us. But yeah, go ahead.
So that's how I ended up here. Okay. So, and in your case, growing up here, you were either going to marry a white woman.
Man, look, people used to give me so much crap. So like, hey, why don't you date a black? Well, I've never seen you date a black girl, Shad. Well, I'm in Keokuk, Iowa. If I meet a black girl, it's a 98% chance she's a cousin.
Right.
Right. Like, I can't do that.
So I think about some of the cultural differences sometimes and how, like, with you mentioned the making sure your hands were clean. And that was a big thing for my parents and my grandparents. But another thing was like when my grandmother is in the kitchen and she's cooking.
Don't you go in there.
You like... You need to make sure you're doing it right. And if you do go in there, it's just a quick question. It's something that has to be taken care of now. And you better not touch their food until it's all done. And my wife will be like, what you cooking? What's this? Like, I'm just going to grab a piece of this. And I'm like, and I'll be like, I don't do that.
Yeah, so my wife, same way.
It's just this thing. Like, that's a small cultural difference that I'm like, okay.
Well, it's just like my wife is very much about allowing our kids, and I want my kids to express themselves, but in your lane. So, sometimes I'll be looking at myself, I'm like, what? And she's just like, he's just asking you a question. I'm like, it's the tone, right? I don't play that. Right, like, but they don't. It's a cultural thing. I'm like, and I know. Don't get me wrong. I have white friends whose parents were like, right. But a lot of my white friends just used to be able to kind of talk to their parents, like in a way that I wasn't used to, right. And I think part of that is that black parents were so extra strict because they didn't want their kids to be painted as this disrespectful, right? Whatever.
The twice as hard for half as much. I know
that's what that is.
I know that I'm going hard on you, but it's because when you get into a moment where this matters, I want you to shine your brightest. And
Absolutely.
that's a thing that, again, I know that white parents want that for their children, but they don't do it with a fear that is even the starting place for them. For us, our parents are like, the starting place is my child is going to have to account for the fact that they are the black person in this moment. And so I think when we explain these sorts of things, white people go, well, if that's how your parents feel, then they must feel like I'm the bad guy. And it's like, no. It's not you. It's not you. It's systems culture and the institutions that we operate within that they feel this way about. And so it's always an odd thing to try to get someone to understand. And like, no. It's not you. It's all of it.
Well, here's why that is. Just to explain to any listeners that may. So it's because we have a tendency in our culture. We love to take collective credit for good things, but assign individual blame for bad things. And so it's a guilt thing. It's like, oh, you're pointing a finger at me. because when it's something negative, they're used to there being an individual guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, we're not saying you. We're just saying that's the way it is. But their perception is, being it's something negative, that you must be saying that it's their fault. Like, no, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm trying to point out to you, I'm not saying you had anything to do to add to that problem. I'm saying this is the way it exists. But I liken it to this. I explained it to a friend of mine this way that he still doesn't get it. I'm like, okay, if I am blind, right? If I am blind and I'm walking around and I got some steel toe boots on and I come stand next to you and I'm standing on your big toe, do I see that I'm standing on your big toe? Do I have any clue that what I'm doing is hurting you? No. It's just it's the existence of my foot happens to be there. I have the right to walk. I'm not trying to do anything malicious to you.
Yeah.
So if I turn around and say, hey, your boots on my foot, and you will respond to me like, I wouldn't intentionally do that to you. What are you saying? Are you saying I'm trying to break your foot? I'm not saying that. I'm just letting you know that your boot is on my foot. That's the existence of this weight. I need it. You can do this to remove it. All you got to. But you're thinking that I'm blaming you. You're like, and I like using the concept of being blind.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Because it's a thing that you can be a part of feeding into an environment that takes away opportunity from somebody, and you don't even realize it.
Undoubtedly. And it's not a thing that we think you're actively participating in. That's the beauty of it. That's the part of it that I'm always enamored by, is like, oh, like, you think that I think you're a terrible person. And I don't. I don't.
I'm just trying to get you to see.
I think that the situation is what's terrible. And so it's also really hard to explain to someone who is experiencing the same environment but being treated differently, that they're being treated differently. And so that's the trick bag that they operate in, where it's like,
well, it's because the system is set up to where, okay, so the entire system from the time of birth, our social structure creates societal norms, right? So when you're working within those boundaries of societal norms, okay, so if for your entire life, I'm just using this as an example, for your entire life, if the only thing that you've seen on TV is white men being portrayed as doctors and attorneys and black men being portrayed as criminals, when the Cosby Show comes along and you got a black doctor as the dad and a white or a black mom as an attorney, it might throw you off. And I grew up during that era watching the Cosby Show, and I would remember my grandparents talking about the media environment surrounding that and how blown away they were that people were put off, and talking about how unrealistic it was to have a black doctor and an attorney as the parents in a household in this upper middle class or wealthy black family that were educated kids and had social standards and were well put, like, and my grandparents were put off because they raised 12 children. My mom being the oldest, born in 1950, or she was born in 1940, graduated in 1959, and she got her and all of her 6 sisters got academic scholarships. So think about that. Black women in that time frame, like, because my grandparents were about education. They were all sharp, put together, right? And so I was raised in an environment where education and achievement was the standard. So to then become an adult and hear people be like, "You speak so well," I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean I speak? Like, that's your compliment to me?"
I used to give so much pushback when people would be like, "Oh, he's so articulate." That was the big one for a while.
Yeah, articulate.
I wish you guys would come up with something new. And you're like speaking to this thing that is, again, it's very common, because I remember, like, my parents are going to be a little younger than your parents. And so I remember, so my mom was born in 66. So
Okay. I have a brother that was born.
hey man, that's how that goes.
Yeah.
So my mom is she's a like one of these parents. So she's 21 when I'm born, and I grew up like at the end of the Cosby Show thing, where like I wasn't like fully formed in it. But I remember one of the things that, like, growing up and hearing about it was, uh, and this is actually, I think I may have been talking to my stepdad about this, but he was like, for us, it always made sense because in black neighborhoods, it wasn't that outrageous to have a black doctor. Now, my
Right.
hometown where I'm from, where he grew up, the doctor in town was Dr. Reeves. But we had like cousins and people who were like in like Michigan, and
Mhm.
they were in these black neighborhoods and they had black doctors. We had like cousins in the military in like Texas, and they like it was black doctors and things like that. And especially
Mhm.
like in the 60s and 70s, growing up,
Yeah.
when the community was more black centric, that wasn't that like outrageous an idea. What was outrageous was the transition the Cosby Show made into taking that into a predominantly white world.
Mhm.
So it was like, oh, he's treating all these white patients. That's
Right.
It was like, oh,
Right.
she's
Well,
representing white clients. And it was like,
yeah.
that's what they're struggling with.
That's what they're struggling with. And if you look, and if you know your history, and you go back, so same thing where my mom grew up, Keokuk, Iowa. There's the black doctors there were the Harpers. It was a whole family of black doctors
Mm,
of multiple generations. The dad, the grandfather, and then the sons all became doctors. And the sons, there were like four of them. One of them moved to St. Louis, one to Chicago, two stayed in Keokuk, right? And then the dad was found mysteriously dead under mysterious circumstances. Um, he was he was responsible for starting, like, there was a upscale high-end black restaurant, an upscale high-end black hotel. So these black doctors in the community put their money into creating places and spaces that black people knew that they could go and have this embedding of their culture that was representative of what you were seeing on the Cosby Show.
yeah,
Right.
that's what, like I said, that's what it was. That's what I remember from my childhood about that, was just the thing of them noticing like, oh, this was normal for
This was
black
normal,
people.
but the point is, it wasn't abnormal. What I was going to say, for a lot of white people in Keokuk to go to Dr. Harper, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I know a ton of my white friends whose parents like, oh yeah, Dr. Harper delivered me, and I'm sitting here thinking in that time, it's like I'm trying to think about, you think about that time and what was all going on, and you're like thinking about a white man allowing a black man to birth his child in the middle of the civil rights movement. Like, you're seeing the most intimate parts of my wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
And
to that effect, I do want to say, like, I follow Rob Sand, who is our state auditor, and he posted this thing from like the 1800s when runaway slave had come to Iowa, and they were trying to get him back, and the like I think it was the Supreme Court of Iowa.
yeah, well, you talk about the Dred Scott case.
Man,
Dred Scott. Well, he went through Iowa and then what was it? I think went to Wisconsin or Illinois. One of the two.
Man, I just know that they were trying to get a runaway back in one of the southern states, and they
Okay.
refused to do it. But I'll look that up, and we'll speak on it next time.
The Dred Scott case is a huge Supreme Court. Yeah, that's another. Yeah, go ahead.
But I say all that to say, like, to live in a state where they've gone from that to, like I said, this being like Obama's whole thing started because he won the Iowa caucuses, to them being the first state to legalize gay marriage, to where we are literally this week, is such an astounding like view at how, like, we have to, people love this idea of, oh, get over it, that was 400 years ago, da da da, we've done it, we're post racial, we're post, like, if we don't stay on top of these things, there's a continual fight to, if you had to fight to get the rights, you're gonna have to fight to keep them.
Well, that's the same concept as American exceptionalism.
Oh yeah.
Because let me just tell you this, and this is because I'm gonna say this is gonna probably trigger some people, but I just have to say it. because I'm a football coach. I coach football. I played college football. I've been involved in the sport my entire life. It's a source of motivation. I think it's one of the greatest educators and developers of honorable young men is the game of football. But anyway, you'll never meet. I always tell people you'll never meet a football coach that comes out and says, "We won a state championship, so we're great forever." Like, no, you win a game. You got it. We used to call it the 24-hour rule. You win a game, you lose a game, doesn't matter. You soak that in for 24 hours, and then you're right back to work. Because a champion understands that to be great continually, you have to continue to move the bar, because once you win, there's a target on it, and somebody's coming after it. Right. It's the same thing with your rights. America has never been perpetually great. America is great or exceptional in its moments when it is moving toward a more perfect union. So if we're like, the civil rights movement was a step forward. So in that moment of moving ahead, that was an exceptional moment, but that does not give you perpetual greatness. It's the moving forward. The moments of moving forward is when we are great.
The trouble with it is, like I said, for every move forward you're making, there are those who are determined to pull it back. So again, like the commitment to pushing it, like America never said, "Oh, let's end slavery and make sure we do the work to make it equitable for the people who endure."
Because it was never designed that way.
Yeah, and
we
so
weren't
it's
supposed
like
to be here.
You can make your progress, but it doesn't come without digression. I don't know how that would be
regressing.
Regressing is what I was looking for there. It doesn't come without regression. And then the other thing to keep in mind is, like, that then skews how you view it moving forward. Because if I give you these rights and then I take those rights plus more away, and then I just give you a few of them back, you might think, all right, we're making that progress up. And it's like, no. Like you're losing here. And that's the thing that I'm trying to now in this moment be mindful of, because I have these nerves around these things where it's like, what are we doing? Why is this? Why is this our approach?
Well, the other thing is, I think it's important to realize, and you said it inadvertently, is the perception is that we were given these rights. And I would argue that you can't give me something that wasn't yours in the first place. We need to understand that America has never given anything to people of color, any minority, that it hadn't stolen from them first.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to be born free. I was supposed to be born, right? But you didn't consider me but 3/5 of a man. Okay. So you can't give me anything. You can keep me from it if you have the law on your side, and all the police and the enforcement and the judges and the ruling classes. You can keep me from it, but you can't give it to me, because it's always been mine. And so and that's, to me, the heart of the problem is this concept. Well, we've given Black people all this stuff. What more do you want? I'm like, you didn't give me a dog. Give me.
It's interesting that that's how they view it, because you're right that it's not given, and but the other thing is that it's also not taken. Like, we're not.
It's restricting.
Yeah. So
or impeding. Yeah.
And so it's just so. It's so important that they understand, and that also we understand, that our pushes for everything we have in terms of progress in this country have been amazing work. Like this isn't.
It wasn't given. We had to fight for every bit of it. America has never just woke up and like, you know what? We've been treating Black people like crap. Let's do the honorable thing and make them equal inheritors of the kingdom. That's never happened.
And so it always reminds me of a thing my grandmother said when Donald Trump was elected the first time, and I went to her and I thought I was going to like really connect with her, and I'm like, man, you got a chance to see Obama become president, and now this guy's I can't believe you lived this long, and now you're going back through this. And she very politely reminded me that, like, it's your turn now, baby. Like, we didn't fight for you to not fight.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you're right. You did. The goal wasn't for you to get these structures knocked to their knees the way you have for me to just get here and sit on my ass. Like,
right.
I got to do some fighting too. And if you weren't above having to fight, what makes me think I'm so special that I'm not? And
right.
when I had that adjustment in perspective, it made it so much easier to stop bitching.
Well, if you think about it, they went through that though too. They went through a period where they had to be awakened to that, because one of the things that we don't teach enough about, or teach as a part of American history, is that Reconstruction was working.
Oh man,
right? And that's a whole thing for another whole podcast. But Reconstruction was working, but then you turn around and you have this period of 70, 80 years of Jim Crow and black codes and lynchings and segregation. So you have black people that were in the late 1800s to the turn of the century were governors, represented in legislatures, have businesses, powerful economic centers like Wilmington, North Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
And all that was destroyed. And then you've got this whole 70-year time frame where nobody really fought. You have people that were standing because they were in a position to where they were kind of lulled to sleep. Like, this is just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And the power we do have, we have to wield it the way that they want us to wield it.
Right. And so then you have the civil rights movement where, like, matter of fact, I got it right here. It's by Jonathan Eig. It's the biography just released on Dr. King. It's 500 pages, right? And I've been deep into that. And one of the things that he talks about in there is how in the beginning, how Dr. King's dad was so against him getting involved in the civil rights, like in that. And the way he was doing it, he's like, no, you can't speak out like that. You can't be that, right? And Martin was like, Dad, I'm not you, basically. Like, this is the way, like, so to think in that way, that his dad was like, no, we don't want to ruffle their feathers. You want to be, right? And I don't want to call it, with all respect to the late Dr. King Sr., but I don't want to, you need to tap dance around it, right? And Martin's like, I'm stepping through the door. I ain't tapping around. Like, I'm going to tell that we're going to put this in their face. And if we have to die, then we have to die, because I'm not going to live on my knees. And so it was a generational thing. So here we are today, faced with the same dilemma, right? You and your grandmother, you're having this talk, and your perception is different. Your perception is you were shocked that this is coming back. And she's like, no. Why do you think we did what we did?
Yeah, we just set the foundation and
we just set the foundation.
And
we didn't say you got to play it our way. Now we have to figure out how to shift our approach. We use the wisdom we learned from that. It's now not just about, so that here, I'll give you the hint. If everything that's happened from George Floyd, Tamir Rice, all that stuff, the extent of everything that people did, what'd they do? They marched and they went home and forgot about it, because somehow they thought that the marching and the protesting was going to equal their success to getting what they want.
Right.
And why? Because they took that from the past. Well, that's what they did in the 60s and the 70s. So this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but you have to take it a step further, because it's a different time. You see, we're not willing to go take that fight to the next level. We're stuck in looking at that.
And not only that, we're not willing to adjust to the times. Mm-mm. It seems we're just gonna keep marching and boycotting. Which, and this is the thing with that.
Don't get me wrong, you got to do that. But
yeah, this isn't a critique on those things. I love seeing everyone who involved themselves in not spending money today. I think that if you're finding your way into activism, however it may be, I'm here with you. I wanted to make sure I did this in the first episode. My heart goes out to you. I wanted to make sure I did it palm up.
This way?
Yeah, palm up. My heart goes out to you. I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
Now that that's done. So, but no, I know that I don't want to be overly critical, because I don't have the idea of how we progress it beyond where it's been anyway. And so it's like,
well, I think what it is, it's not about knowing what to do. It's about don't stop
don't stop doing.
Don't stop doing. So
Yep.
if that was the mark, like, and first of all, I want to say, yeah, about the not spending money today, that was real hard for me because I haven't spent money in the last few months because I don't have any. But so I'm like, man, I'm in on the cause, bro. I've been here. I've been broke. No, I'm just kidding. So, but the point I'm making is that, you know, and I hate to just keep reiterating the point, but it's like people they get tired.
Mm-hmm.
They get weary, right? And it's like I keep going back to, you know, thinking about, you know, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod.
Mm.
Right? Like, because the road was stony don't mean you quit marching.
You gotta keep going.
Because they beat you with the rod doesn't mean you stop marching. Right? If you like because some people got arrested, you gonna run off. Like, there in the day, it was German shepherds, fire hoses, bullets, whatever.
Also, this is just a little comedian's note here. They were doing it in old church shoes. So yes. You gotta like
you got here, Nikes.
We got Air Maxes. So
you got Air Max.
Yep. Like maybe
and they were doing it in suits. We got Nike Tech. You can breathe. Yeah, you know. You know.
I mean, that I bring up because again, like I know that there's someone out there with their mind on this, trying to get it to a place where it is more available for us to do in a way that's going to take modern efforts and like maximize the results like they did in the 60s. And so that's the thing I'm looking forward to. I want to make sure I'm not, like I said, like I'm not shitting on anything, because I do feel like it's important to keep in mind like the boycotting and all that stuff so that we're not completely lost, but then also being like, we have to find ways to modernize this and make it so that the impact is just as palpable.
And to add to that, and I think we should, you know, we've been chatting here for about 51 minutes, and I know we've got another segment we want to get to. I'm super excited about because it has to do with food. You guys are going to enjoy this, but I want to add to that the fact of it's also important that in this, that it is Black people telling their own story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is a thing that gets lost because the media and other do-gooders like to sometimes steal the spotlight, and it shifts the narrative from what we like. There was never, this is not to be disrespectful, but I think people just need to understand the difference is there were never white spokespeople for the civil rights movement. There were people involved in it. There were people that supported it and were behind it, but it was Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, right? All these, you know, people, Stokely Carmichael, whoever, out front that were speaking. Okay, they didn't have or depend on anybody else to deliver their message. And I think today that you know, we've talked about this, the absence of a powerful, influential Black leader is one of the biggest things that's missing to take that next step moving forward and to bridge that gap. There is no MLK to go sit down with President Kennedy and say, hey, no, this is what we're trying to say. This is what we need. This is what we need from you. There's not that presence, right? Instead, you've got Kanye West and right. That's who we're going. You know, I'm just being real, right? I had to go there. Okay, but that's the paradigm shift. I know that's an extreme reality of it, but that's the truth. You got, you know, celebrities and athletes supposedly carrying the message. That's not.
Malcolm told us about that.
Yes, he did.
Malcolm made it clear that that's not
it.
Where it's going to come from. And so I think what you said initially is the point. We have to tell our own stories, and I think that's why what we're doing now is important. I think that's why it's important that we're not, you know, not only are we not relying on you know, white allies to step up and speak for us in terms of like public appearances, but it's why it's important that we're active in our local schools with our children. They have Black friends who don't maybe understand the impact that beautiful Black skin they have can make on the world.
Yep.
Like it's not something we're telling you because we want you to limit yourself because of it, or because we want you to, feel like someone else is inferior because they don't have. It's just the
No.
thing of like,
Representation.
we want you to recognize the value in it. And so
Yeah.
it's
I'm a substitute teacher. I substitute teach, and you know how many, not just black kids, but white kids have come to me and like, I've never had a black sub before. Like they're
yeah.
open about it, right? They're like, I didn't know. And so what do you think that does for young boys and girls of color? No matter what, they don't have to be black, to be Asian, Hispanic, whatever. Like, oh, maybe I could do that too. But if there's nobody in that space that looks like them or that looks different than anybody else, then they think that door is closed. That's just the reality of it. It's just like Cooper DeJean broke down that door for white corners in the NFL. Listen, if I was a white kid growing up, I would think I have to play safety. But now, because of Cooper, y'all get to be corners. And one day, maybe you'll get to be Super Bowl winning quarterbacks again. Okay, too soon. Sorry.
What I was going to say is, we almost had a twofer where they, 2 years ago, almost got McCaffrey to win a Super Bowl over Patrick Mahomes, and they would have been back at the running back position.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's coming around for him, man. It's been a good decade.
Y'all making a comeback.
What you said reminded me of something that I saw on Facebook once, where it was people asking each other, when was the first time you had a black teacher? And I remember a lot of my Iowan friends were like, I never had one.
And mine was college.
And so, like the children where I'm from, like the white kids where I'm from were like, second grade. Like it was just all these like kindergarten or whatever, right? And so I remember one of them being like, I don't know, but I can tell you which one I disliked the most. And it was one of my coaches from high school, because and this, I shouldn't tell this story, but it's actually, as an adult, I know if someone did it to my kid, I'd be upset, but it was funny for me at the time. So my coach, I won't say which one because I never know who's going to listen to this, but one of the coaches was speaking to a kid. The kid was being real disrespectful, and this kid's dad was a purveyor and partaker in the crack exercises of America of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Exercises.
Yeah, and so because of that, he had a propensity to sometimes, in the way that people now might cut off a catalytic converter and sell it for scrap and the valuables inside. He was doing that beforehand with other metal procurements and
copper.
Just all of it, like whatever you can get, right? And so then we looked up one day, and this kid was giving the coach some real trouble. And the coach was like, "Hey man, leave me alone." And he was like, "I don't have to leave you alone. I'll tell my daddy on you," or something like that. And he's like, "Speaking of your daddy, does he steal?"
No.
And I had never, as a kid who was like really into English and like wordplay.
Yeah, like what is that?
To have someone that quickly say steal, and it be like in reference to, I was like, wait a minute.
That's cold-blooded. That's cold-blooded.
And I just remember being like, oh, that is the exact coach that this white student also was like, who I hated was him. It was like, oh, that dude.
I hated it. Could not stand. Yeah.
Like not only are you the black teacher, everybody, I mean, obviously you have to have a connection with the student to be able to say something that ridiculous and not end up fired. And they got along fine, but that was just an interesting thing where I was like, wait a minute, you're not even an English teacher and you're showing me that sort of dexterity and fun with words. Way to go,
right?
Man. So yeah, that was when you brought it up. I thought of it and I was like, man, that's an interesting thing that people are still experiencing, where, like you said, it was college for you, but for so many, it was like, I never had one. And that's when you say you're subbing and people are seeing it, it just means something to have people like that in your life. And so, with that said, we've had this has been great.
It's a great
I do want to say, I've enjoyed it so far, but we do.
And real quick, before we move on, we want to give our disclaimer that if anybody felt offended, that is too bad, because we are going to speak the truth. Thank you.
If you feel offended, email us, tripleepod@gmail.com. Let me know.
We want to hear from you. We want to work. Look, we want to. It's not. We don't want to offend anybody, but people will take things certain ways or view things. Like for the first time. No, it's the second time. This is the second time on social media in my life. I was literally just talking about, Doge, and we didn't even get to. We were going to talk about that. But, we'll do that. That'll be another podcast, right? But I was talking about that, and somebody basically alluded to the fact that my comments were somewhat racist. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm talking about money and policy and abuse of power. And where do you get, right? And so you never know. My point is, you never know how somebody's going to perceive something, or right. And I gave the person. I mean, I kind of lit into him a little bit, but I was like, "How you right?" But looking back, maybe I was a little hard on him. I lit into him because I knew him. I know him, right? Like, which was shocking to me that he would make such a comment. But my point here is that if you just be honest with us, right? If you felt a certain sort of way about something we said. This whole thing is about enlightening. Like, I want to be enlightened on what made you feel that way. Do you really feel that there's something we said that was off base, or that you felt offensive, was offensive, or even regardless if you're black, white, whatever. There are things that I've said that other black people have come to me like, hey man, right? That was messed up to say toward us. I'm like, well, if it's true, it's true. Get it together, right? Like, so
I'm here for all of it. Let me know what you think. And the trouble with these things is sometimes they'll trend towards, like, if you disagree, say something.
Mm-hmm.
Forget all that. If you agree, hit me up too. I want you to let me know you're listening and you're paying attention, and that you're, like, however you feel, I want you to feel comfortable getting it in with us. And so, to that effect, what I think we're probably going to get the most feedback on, if I'm being honest, Shad, is our next segment, which I just want to jump right into. We're going to end this thing with a top 5. We're going to go back and forth, and we're just going to list our top 5 fast food French fries. All right,
that's right, boy.
So we got to. Hey,
look. We got high blood pressure, heart disease, all that stuff. We might as well enjoy it, right? I'm gonna go try all different kind of French fries all across the state to see if I can somehow discount Mr. Powell's top 5. But I think mine are probably going to be. I'm willing to try anything you say, but my top 5.
Well, and again, we haven't discussed this.
We've never discussed this.
We do a production meeting, but the top 5s will be completely.
Yep. We might be the same. I'll laugh if we're close to the same. But.
If we go to the same, that's totally fine. I just want to see. I just want to see where we are. So I'll actually let you, since this one was mine. If I pick the list, I'll let you go first. If you pick the list, I'll go first. But whenever you're ready, kick us off.
So number 5 for Shad Clayton's top fast food French fries. The bottom of the list is Wendy's.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Back in the day, they were a little bit better, but now they're kind of a little chunky, and sometimes they don't feel like they've done all the way, and you got a lot of soft potato, and the skin is not, and then they're over salted a lot sometimes. So it's like, hey, yeah, you got to be,
Okay.
Give me number 5.
Solid pick. Yep. I'm going to, I'll jump right into it as well. Number 5 for me, I got Arby's curly fries.
Yeah, I'm not. I can respect that. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I had fresh curly fries from Arby's.
Man, they the thing that the trippy part for them is you can get, I don't know if people know this, you can get cheese sauce, and when you dip the seasoned curly fry into the cheese sauce, it makes it a whole lot better.
Man, I tell you, the best cheese sauce curly fries are. Then these guys aren't on my list. Is Hooters.
Oh yeah, okay. I remember.
Whenever I'm in Omaha, when my son has a basketball tournament, and I don't judge me, I try to be the best father I could be. But my son is to the point. If we got a basketball tournament in Omaha and it's me and him for the weekend, it's like, Dad, we're doing dinner at Hooters, right? he just comes straight out, right?
Yeah. All right. I'm here for it. Get it how you live. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, sir. I'm raising them right.
What you got at number 4? I'm gonna shut up before I
at number 4. At number 4, I have and this kind of pains me to do or whatever, but at number 4, I've got Burger King.
Okay. All right.
Yep. They again, they're like, I think Burger King's burgers, to me, the flame broil is better than McDonald's.
Come on.
But their fries are underwhelming at best. Like, how you got?
They look like they come in a bag that just says fries,
like a white bag with fries,
white even,
or with a black fries, like from a cartoon. This is nasty. What you got?
All right, number 4, I got this is your list. I got yellow Wendy's is what I wrote down. I swear.
Okay.
So old school Wendy's. So the new Wendy's. You're right. How is it that you can never get it all the way right? Either it's the skin is all burnt and like they're soft, but yeah, yellow Wendy's. It was like, the funny thing is, yellow Wendy's was like the current day Burger King fries. Yes. If they had like their life together, like they went and they were taking Burger King knew their new fries. If they went on Ozempic and got some blood pressure medicine, it would be the yellow Wendy's.
It would be the yellow Wendy's. And I would be interested. I'd be interested to know, and if you're a listener and you happen to have worked for one of these organizations and you can educate us on this, I'd like to know what type of grease are they using, because everybody knows the best to use is peanut oil. But peanut oil is expensive.
It's also something that a lot of people are allergic to. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. I have that breaking out. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Number 3 on my list, moving up into the upper echelons of the Fry Kingdom. Number 3, I have to go with the Chick-fil-A waffle fries.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Look, man. So that is going to be the biggest shock to everyone, because that should have been my number 3 as well. And it was going to be, except for what I actually picked. And then it ended up not making it at all. But man, they're so good. Now, here's the thing about them. When I go there, I like to get the spicy, and
spicy chicken,
I get the spicy filet. And then if you pile like the waffle fries on there and eat it together, it is such a wonderful experience.
Can I give you a big back comment?
Yeah, that's what this is about.
Okay, here's a bit. Do you know that also? So here's one thing that I do.
Okay.
Do you know Chick-fil-A will get Chick-fil-A's motto? Forget Burger King. Chick-fil-A's motto should be it however you want it, or have it your way.
Okay.
Because you can order. I got 2 fillets with curly fries and bacon in the middle, wrapped in lettuce as my sandwich. You could do that. It's like a wrap. However you want it.
Oh, okay.
So I had 2 fillets, no bread, 2 fillets. I had cheese and bacon in the middle, and they wrap it in lettuce.
I need to say this while we're doing the podcast. This is the first episode. So on my first album, I forgot to plug. I'm a comedian.
Yeah, he's a comedian. And nobody knows.
No, most of you listening to this are going to know this already, but I'm a comedian. I have an album and a special out. The special is available on Tubi. I keep forgetting it. If you have the Tubi app with all the bad movies, I'm on there. If you have whatever streaming platform you use to listen to music, I'm on there. It's called The Squirrels Get Fat. It's a love letter from a Louisianan who moved to Iowa. So
now, hey,
that album,
just so you know, I'm a comedian too. Well, I think I am, because my wife's always asked me if I think I'm funny. I don't know if that means. But anyway, that's a whole.
My wife
think you funny? You think you funny? She's asking the weird tone, so maybe.
Now, here's what I want to say. On that first album, I had a joke about Chick-fil-A. And then on the album, I'm working on a new special now. I'm touring this material across the country. And I have a big part of it is about Chick-fil-A. So I love that place, to the point that I did a show before, and Chick-fil-A had I think they were doing like a party there. And they ended up gifted me a bunch of like old catering bags because they were like, we like what you're doing so much. So shout out. I know
how Chick-fil-A are you? How many points you got on your app?
That's interesting. I'm gonna look that up and just kind of like filibuster as we talk about it. But this is the thing. Like the joke I tell about Chick-fil-A is about how you're not supposed to be eating there anymore, but I still do, and it's not. I'm not gonna get into jokes on here, but it's just one of those things where like I don't want people to hear this and feel like I'm being like I don't care about them and how they're dealing with things, but I only got 1,092 points, but let me explain.
I just used them. You just used them.
Yeah.
I just used mine too.
I went on a bit of a shopping spree. Okay, so holla at your boy. All right, so let's get to my number 3. My number 3 is the new KFC Eczema fries.
See, I haven't even gone to KFC.
Man,
and how long? Because I can't. If they didn't went way downhill like back in the day, they KFC was it, right? So, but now, I mean, I just.
This is what I swapped. The Chick-fil-A for. The reason I picked those is because I used to love their wedges, right? When they had the wedges, I was like, all right, I see what you're doing, because similarly to Arby's, the wedges were seasoned, and then if you got the mac and cheese, the wedges were also so big you could use them as a spoon for the mac and cheese. You get the 2-in-1 bite. You know, I'm big backing over here. This is what we do. You know, right? I lost a bunch of weight recently, but that don't mean the back is still big, right? So you go and you want to get some. You're like, wait a minute, I want some wedges, and they're like, no, we got fries now. You give them a try, and they're actually pretty decent. And it's like, all right, I see what you're up to, KFC. You know, this works. So it's not the best, it's not the worst. It's just like some middle of the road French fry, and I wanted to shout them out. So who you got at number 2? Let's keep it moving.
Okay, so at number 2, this was going to be a little bit off the beaten path. Okay. But at number 2, I have the crinkle fries from Cane's.
That's my number 2.
That's my number 2. We were going to have an intersect.
No, our number 1 is going to intersect too, because there's only one number 1, but we'll get to that in a minute.
So I got to tell you guys something. So they can't hear what's going on, but my wife and my 8-year-old just walked in. So this is awesome. So we're recording our first podcast here, and this is Mr. Noah, my 8-year-old.
Good to see you. I know
they just walked in. He just got done. He's performing in a musical, Beauty and the Beast. So he just got his second to last performance. He's doing awesome. But they just walk in. Now, keep in mind, they can't hear anything, but they hear. My wife walks across. They hear me talk about fries and grease and this, and they're walking through the room just looking like they have no idea what I'm doing. He just said, "You eat too much food." Okay,
no such thing. No such thing. Listen, that's the number 2.
That's the number 2.
And they salt them so they don't season anything at Cane's, which is fine. But they salt them perfect. And here's the thing you have to keep in mind about Cane's. I hear people all the time, because this is a Louisiana legend. I've been eating Cane's since probably 2005, 2007, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Like we had one of the first like Cane's that wasn't in Baton Rouge up near where I
know you want to say it. I was Cane's before Cane's was cool. I know what you say.
Look, man, that's just the truth of the situation, right? So check this out. If you're going to complain about Cane's not being seasoned, I understand it. But this is what you can do. If you like seasoned chicken, you can bring your own seasoning to Cane's. But what I want to point out about Cane's is this. You're never going to get old food. It's always going to be hot and fresh and good.
That issue that we talked about, the curly fries at Arby's, would never happen at Cane's.
Right. So that's what you're in this for, guys. Keep that in mind, right? So, all right, let's...
You got my number 1, I guarantee, is going to come like a Mack truck out of left field.
Oh, maybe we don't have the same number 1. But what's your number 1?
My number 1, the fries, home cut fries from Wingstop.
Okay, all right. The number 1s don't match, but that's a good one. Okay, all right. Okay, I thought, man, okay, all right. Those are fantastic. The problem with them is that if they're not, like, they go stale fast. You got to get them hot.
But I'm coming to eat. I ain't coming to look at them for a while. I'm coming to get them and eat them while they hot. Burn my lips while I'm driving down.
That's what I'm saying. You got the fries at Wingstop. You got to either have it like
they got even
like you got to get them then, or they're no good.
Yeah, like, you wait till you get home. Or I'll tell you what, if you do, they are good. If you have an air fryer.
Oh, okay.
And the next day, so here's one thing that my 12-year-old and I have figured out. Oh, and I missed one. Doggone it, no. Okay, because it might be your number one, so I can let it out the bag.
Well, I'll let you finish.
Okay.
The air fryer thing. Let's.
But if you put them in the air fryer, like the next day, and so what we like to do is put them in the air fryer and then melt like shredded cheese on top of them, put a little bacon on them, and have bacon cheese fries. It's the bomb.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that.
But now, I think I know your number one.
It's McDonald's, man. There's only one.
Oh yeah, no.
What? That's
my alternate. I have an alternate number one.
Oh well, yeah. We'll make this.
You go. Explain your honorable mention.
So McDonald's has been the best fry since I was born. That's just. Listen.
That's not the.
So here's what it is. We're taking each fry at its maximum value. It's coming out hot. It's been salted the way you need, and it's
and you're doing it right now. You're gonna eat it right now.
You're gonna eat it right now. McDonald's never misses. They've been.
You're right.
You're
right. You're right on that.
Now listen. We're at some point, we're going to do the top 5 fast food nuggets. And the McNugget is going to get the same love simply because
I don't even like nuggets.
Since 1987 to 2025, I have been able to go to any McDonald's in this wonderful country of ours and say I want an order of fries, and I know exactly what I'm gonna get.
Yeah, you are stuck in your ways. Is the problem?
That's fair. That's fair. I'll give
you
you that.
Like
but, okay.
You like an old Baptist. You like an old Baptist minister. You just don't change.
So okay, what was your
alternate number one? Was gonna be the Cajun fries in the bag from Five Guys.
Oh, look, man, that Cajun seasoning ain't Cajun seasoning to me. It's got just a touch too much herb in it. Like when I think Cajun, I want a little more cayenne. I want the kick. I don't want the I feel refreshed after I eat those
You feel like
fries.
it's a little bit too garlicky.
The garlic I don't mind as much. It's like there's a rosemary or a thyme or something in there that just is a little too much. Yeah, but
okay, Bobby. Bad. Okay, Bobby Flay. Okay, Bobby Flay. You get a little bit too. You get the black Bobby Flay over here. That herb. You don't even know herb. What kind of herb you talking? What kind of herb you talking about anyway? You talking about the same herb I'm talking?
Now I did. I wanted to make sure that I threw out just the absolute reality of the fact that I know that McDonald's is it is me being stuck in my ways. Fair, I'll give you that. But to be able to consistently for that long be able to just it's like the
Tom Brady of French fries.
Yeah, it's they have those items that so many other places. Like I said, I had to specify yellow Wendy's because that was a moment. Everything in Wendy's used to be yellow. The seeds on the top of the bun, the cheese, all of it, and it was great. And so then it changed. Yeah, it was the napkins were yellow. It was a time to be alive, and now they tried to spruce everything up and ruin the vibe. It was, man. That was some good stuff. So you
act like it was the beginning of hip hop. You like it was a time to be alive.
Look, man, it was being there was something. Look, man, yellow Wendy's when you would still get 5 nuggets for 99 cents, man. Come on, that was
look for those of you that aren't watching this. If you're listening to it, if you can see the look of nostalgia in his eyes, like he's talking about a grandmother that used to give him popsicle. You talk about the ice cream truck coming by grandma's house. It's that type of nostalgia. Oh man, yellow Wendy's. He got this dude.
You're not wrong. I'm not gonna fight you on this because it's true. I have a definitive love and soft spot for yellow Wendy's.
That's the same look I have when I talk about grandma's cookies. Boy, you was in love with that one.
Hey man, that was some good. The grandma's cookies in the white pack. They used to get 6 of them, but now they upgraded and they swapped it. You only get 2 bigger ones.
Yeah, you only get 2 big ones.
You know what? We gotta save some. You remember how I was telling you? When we do the top 5, this is where we're gonna get the most pushback. Is because both of us got a little too excited about this. Now, with that said, we better go ahead and wrap this thing up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
It was, I think, in terms of developing what we want to do and moving it forward, I think we laid out the groundwork pretty nicely. So,
yep.
Anything you got to say before we take off?
I just want to say, and we'll kind of, refine this as we go forward. But I just think we should, wrap up every episode with remembering and keeping in your mind that our purpose for doing this to engage, enlighten, and empower. And hopefully that by us engaging you today, that you feel enlightened in some respect, and that you feel a little bit more empowered to come back through that circle and engage people in conversation, right? Because you have maybe a different perspective on one of the topics we spoke about, right? And that's what this is all about. It's not about us pushing our views on you. It's just a hope to enlighten you just a little bit and hopefully brighten your day, brighten your life, bring you some joy. And remember, it doesn't matter black, white, yellow, green, purple. We might have came here on different ships, but we're all on the same boat now, right? So it's time to come together, kind of learn about each other and become better people and make our world a better place, right? So.
My man, nothing to add. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to tune in next time. We are going to be doing this as often as we can, so keep an eye out for us. Take care. All right, so let's just leave this.